people are like, well, intuition's feelings. It's actually not feelings. So I'll give you a really good example here. Your intuition will tell you, I'm sure half of the people listening to this have dated someone horrible. So let's use that example. Okay, we've all dated someone horrible. And what did you do when you dated that horrible person? Your intuition told you this isn't for you. And that was clear as day. And your emotion was upset that that person wasn't for you.
This is Girl Take Note, a podcast for women who are looking to turn their dreams into reality. Hey, Sabrina, welcome to the Girl Take Note podcast. How are you?
I am good. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. I think you have such just such an amazing type of career. Can you kind of walk us through your early days as an entrepreneur and maybe some of those pivotal moments that led to your success?
Oh, girl, that is a loaded question, but absolutely. I'm like, where do we unpack all of the baggage that I had to go through? So for those listening, I am an East Coast girl at heart. So I grew up in the East Coast, came from two amazing immigrant parents who essentially taught me what being an entrepreneur was. You know, a lot of immigrants are entrepreneurs because they have the skill set for it, right? They have to learn a new language, they have to take risks, they have to make decisions. And so that's what my parents showed me as a young girl. So I spent many years climbing the corporate ladder. I worked for companies like Apple with no engineering degree. A lot of people ask me, like, what is the secret to my track record? And to be honest with you, for me, it's always been never taking no for an answer. To me, I'm like, I just took a no from the wrong person, but, or the right person, right? Because they just weren't aligned. But that's how I got into my corporate career. And then, becoming an entrepreneur, I mean, that was a really big spiritual and mindset jump for me, because going from corporate to becoming an entrepreneur required me to change very quickly, and not really in my control.
Yeah. That's one of the things too, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when you decided to take that leap, where was your mindset at when you decided to do that? Were you fearful in terms of like, okay, I'm leaving this corporate job, I've been doing very well here, and now here I am jumping into this thing that is kind of unknown, right? Not, we'll see how this goes. Entrepreneurship it's a journey, it's not a destination, right? So where was your mindset when you decided to take that leap?
I'll be honest with you. I find that modern day entrepreneurship is like almost like framed like a Disney movie, right? So like, it's like, okay, we're going to like work from home. I'm going to live in Bali for half of the year. And
God.
And like, my first year of entrepreneurship, I was like, this is a scam. I was like, this is a scam. I'm like, my life sucks. Like, I'm, so to we're making something very heavy, very light, but I'll be honest with you. The number one difference, in my opinion, between corporate and entrepreneurship is being an entrepreneur means that that your day is filled with decision making, and you have to take responsibility and accountability of all the decisions that you make.
Yeah.
And that includes what time you wake up. That includes how you structure your day. That includes how your energy is. How do you start your day? Do you start it by opening your phone and looking at your emails, or do you start it with a walk, right? How do you make sure that you are keeping your energy high so that you can be the right, I like to call it, parent of our business, right? And so for me, I went from working for Apple, which was an incredibly autonomous role that I had. I managed a lot of people. I was in operations. I had a lot of responsibility, but there's a big difference between someone setting up the goals and the metrics for you to go chase it, and then you navigating not only a new skill, not only a new routine, but you're actually battling your own sabotage, right? Your own,
Yes.
how you view the world. And so my first year was in fact a scam. I made every, and I joke around about it because to me, I had this like idea of what it would be, and it was really hard.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have it any other way, by the way. I wouldn't have it any other way. I would keep it the way that it was. But first of all, I couldn't pay myself out for the
Hmm.
first 9 months.
Yeah.
Um, I had to, I was living in a tiny, tiny apartment, and I was really just trying to make ends meet. And
Yeah.
there's a distinction between, okay, I gotta, because the interesting thing about being an entrepreneur is it also illuminates your relationship with money.
Oh.
So, you
Mm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're like, okay, I could pay myself out, but what comes first, the business or me, right?
Yeah.
Or how do I view my relationship with money? Am I constantly in this like scarcity mode? Am I constantly wondering when I'm going to eat again? Or do
Yes.
I have faith? Do I have trust? Right? So I'll pause there, but it was a very eye-opening year for me.
Yeah. You know what? I can that resonate with me so much because it's so true when you get into this. So a year ago I was laid off, right? And very good job, corporate America, high salary, very much so decision maker in company and tech. And when it happened, one, I felt like I was not prepared for, but then I said, okay, I told my husband, so you know what? I think I'm gonna try this thing, entrepreneurship full time. I think I'm gonna just jump in, right? And it has been a journey where it has tested my faith, right? Tested my own beliefs in myself and what I feel, God is leading me to do. I question it all the time. And so hearing you say that just resonates with me so well because I'm still on that journey of saying to myself, hey, you probably should just go get a job right now. You know what I mean? So God, that resonated with me so much. And I think that resonates with a lot of entrepreneurs where you're just kind of like in that space of just, when things are not moving as quickly as you want them to go, then it's not like the painted picture that you believe it to be, or so many other people paint it to be. Should I continue? Did you ever come to that pivotal moment and felt like, should I continue or should I just keep staying course? Should I keep just believing, knowing that I can get there? Or should I just say, you know what? I tried it for a few months. Let me go back to corporate America.
Yeah, so I have so many thoughts on that. So first of all,
Yeah.
most businesses that start don't actually make it past the 2-year mark for this exact reason.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that there's so much advice on there on the internet on how to grow a podcast, how to
Oh my
do
God.
content, how to grow on Pinterest. I have the latest thing. Like it is
God.
just so overwhelming. But you know what they don't teach you? They don't teach you how to use your intuition. They
Yes.
don't teach you how to learn how to make the right decisions. They
Mm-hmm.
also don't teach you how to look at your business, how to co-parent your business. And so for me, I just want to make a statement, I haven't been in the entrepreneurial world for very long. Did I
Yeah.
have success quickly? We did. But, I always say this because now I'm on my third business talking to you today.
Yeah.
And despite my past track record, I am learning brand new skills that I've
Mm.
never used before in my prior business.
Yeah.
And so I always like to say it never gets easier. And you will always be tested on new ways on how to trust yourself. So to give you a
Yes.
really good idea, and I love to say I love to talk about this when people argue with me and they're like, "Well, there's no place for intuition in business. There's no place for
Mm-hmm.
trusting yourself. It's a data cold world." And
Yeah.
absolutely, I mean, data, so how I look at it is data helps us make really informed decisions.
Yeah.
Data, we collect data like numbers and information about certain things so that our bodies, which carry so much ancient wisdom, right? Our bodies
Mm-hmm.
are constantly scanning whether or not our nervous system feels safe with making that decision, right?
Yeah.
And so when you look at trusting yourself, there's two different paths. And this is what makes entrepreneurship so hard. You have one lane where, we're human, right? And so we're constantly wearing two pairs of glasses. We're either looking at the world from our past experiences, from a place of confidence, inspiration, creativity, and love,
Yeah.
or we're looking with another pair of glasses, which is fear, uncertainty, doubt, confusion, and newness, right? Uncertainty is
Yes.
big. And so when we look to make decisions, I always like to ask people, where are you making this decision from? Because you can always feel it in your body. And the thing is with entrepreneurship is a lot of the most seasoned entrepreneurs are fast decision makers, but they're not reacting out of a constant place of trauma.
Mm.
They are reacting on behalf of this business that they're bringing out into the world. So if you look at like Elon Musk or even Jeff Bezos, or even, we can use a female as an example, like Sarah Blakely.
Yeah.
All of these people created products that never existed before.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you I'm going to say the 80s, right? When Spanx wasn't even a thing. Sarah Blakely's the founder of Spanx.
Yeah.
She made the first Spanx using stockings, and she just cut them and like put them on her waist to kind of like tuck her tummy in.
Yep.
And at the time there was a certain belief about how to be sexy, or what does sexy mean, or all these things about weight and all these other perceived things about women. And she still went and did it, right?
Yes.
And in fact, she turned it into a $1 billion company and more. And so when I look at trusting yourself, I always ask people, where are you answering that question? Because the best entrepreneurs cannot listen to the fear and the doubts that are also equally imposed from the external world, on top of it coming from within you, right?
Yes.
So there's two things that you're battling. So yeah, I mean, it's such a big lift from coming from corporate.
Yeah.
And also, I'm going to say it's also a big lift coming from one business to another. I am experiencing a lot of that today with you on the phone, right? In my current era of whatever I'm working towards.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand that. Let me ask you this question. Has your definition of success changed given all the success you've had? Has it changed over the years from when you started to where you are now, basically?
100%. And I think I used to look, so I'm going to take us on a little spiritual journey here.
Yeah.
I came from a household where I had shelter and stability.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the 2008 crash, my family basically lost everything. So we went from having a house and resources and all these amazing things to literally losing everything at the age of, or I would say around 16.
Mm-hmm.
And 16 is, I started working when I was 14 years old. I worked at a pizza shop.
Yeah.
But 16 is usually the age where you start either getting a job or you start like wanting things outside of what your parents give you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, I equated stability, love, emotional connection, and safety to money, because we lost it all. So all of that stability, safety, and connection was what disappeared after money. So this is, by the way, unconscious. It's not like I was 16 and I was like, I know that this is happening right now.
Yeah, of course.
Years and years after doing a lot of healing work. And so the interesting thing was, I went and for 10 years, so from 16 to 26, I chased success and money as a way of proving my self-worth. That's all I did. So I would say the more I achieve, the more I am worthy. The more I achieve, the more my parents will think I'm worthy, because they also were losing their self-worth at the time, right? They couldn't provide.
Yeah.
And so this impacted a lot of different things for me. So this impacted my dating life, because boy, was I in that energy for a very long time.
Yeah.
Where I would date and be like, look at all my things. And no one cared, right? Because that has nothing to do with love.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
very different.
Yeah.
Or they cared for the wrong reasons. I'll say that. They cared for the wrong reasons. And I chased success because, to me, I was almost running away from my own vulnerability. So success actually padded that for me.
Yeah.
And for a while, if I'm being 100% honest with you, I didn't really know what I was chasing, but I knew two things for damn certain. And one of them was it was never enough. No matter how much I did, it was never enough. And two, I always had a little bit of emptiness no matter how much I achieved. So if you were to look at like what I did from the hours of 5 to 9 p.m., I found those
Mm-hmm.
nights very empty for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have relationships. It was like I had this really big agenda. And if it didn't fit the agenda, I didn't know how to be.
Yeah.
And so when I turned 26, 27, I had this massive awakening. And I realized that no matter how much I chased, it was never going to be enough for me because I wasn't enough for me.
Mm.
And the source of my success wasn't coming from a place of love. It was actually coming from a place of fear.
Wow.
And the thing is, there's a lot of ways to be successful. Okay. We can use very extreme examples. There are some really terrible people in the world
Mm-hmm.
that are, quote, have money, right?
Yeah.
Have
Yep.
things, right? And if you notice there, I didn't use the word successful because I don't
Yeah.
consider them to be successful, right? Just by
Yeah.
standard, they have a certain level of achievements or vanity or fame or whatever that is. And so I went on this big discovery journey within myself, and I started asking myself some really big questions. And so, after a 3-4 year period, I'm almost 32 now.
Mm-hmm.
I truly discovered what that was missing within me. And the years that I spent running slowed down. So instead of running, I started walking. Instead of walking, I just started crawling. And then I finally
Yeah.
took a pause, and I completely regutted who I was from the inside out. And now when I look at success, I was just teaching this the other day to a client, and they were like, I'm just so confused because I keep posting on social media. I keep buying all the things. I
Yeah.
don't understand why I'm not getting above 2,000 views on my Instagram. I don't understand why, there's not a line out the door for my coaching program.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, let me ask you something. Are you like, how do you feel about what you're putting out there? Do you feel like really proud of it? Do you feel extremely connected to your mission? Do you feel like you're teaching something that is truly helpful to the world? And don't just like spit out a yes, like really feel that. Like, does that feel good and different and valuable? And they were like, well, not really. I'm just doing what everyone else is doing, right?
Yeah.
I'm just giving the 3 tips, and I'm downloading the courses, and like, I don't get it. I don't get why I'm not there yet. And it was interesting because I was like, okay, well, if you look at anyone that has achieved those things, that the exposure to followers and the buyers, that is an output.
Mm.
That is a
Mm-hmm.
result of value, education, and alignment that they're putting out into the world. So by you going towards the result first, you're bypassing like a huge part of the ingredient, right? To
Yeah.
to really creating aligned success. And so for me, I have created aligned success before, which is why my business blew up and it turned into what it did.
Yeah.
And the secret to that is that we truly educated people, and we provided something that no one wanted to do. No one wanted to own multiple construction companies and
Mm-hmm.
be in a labor intensive business in a world full of SaaS and venture. Like no one wanted to do that. And so, I always help people reframe what they're chasing, because I find that a lot of people are chasing success, coming back to your point, your question earlier, through a lens of emptiness. And
Yeah.
it's not actually at the heart of, one, what makes them happy, but two, at the heart of what really drives people to buy products and also to stick around to care about what you're saying,
Yeah.
especially in 2024.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's so important. Let me ask you this. So you go from scaling your real estate business to 85 million. to now founding the Intuitive CEO. Can you explain what that means, one, and why you think intuition is so essential to business?
Yeah. So, for me, I was always coming from a place of making decisions through what other people were telling me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And also from a place of logic. And by the way, logic is very, very important. And also factoring in data and feedback from the world is also really important. So I like to
Yeah.
say that up front.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that in business, you really have to listen to yourself. You really,
Yeah.
really do. And you have to decipher, where is this little voice in my head coming from? Is it coming
Mm-hmm.
from fear, or is it coming from the right aligned way to make a decision on behalf of this business? Because the thing is, and I'll say this because I learned this the hard way. Ideas that come to you, your business was an idea at some point that was
Yeah.
gifted to you by the universe, God, whomever
Yes.
you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, it's like our children, right? We don't pick our children, and our children don't pick us, right? Or they
Yeah.
do. They do whatever you believe in. But it's the same thing with a business. We get these amazing ideas and we're supposed to carry them out into the world. And
Yeah.
the way that we carry those things out into the world is a co-creation. And the thing is, like, I find that so many people sabotage their businesses because they put their needs first. Okay.
Yeah.
And if that business had the best parent in the world that was going to give them the life it deserved, the best potential and opportunity it deserved, would you parent your business differently?
Mm.
And a lot of people would say, well, yeah, I totally would. I wouldn't be making decisions out of fear. I would have made that decision differently. I would have taken out a grant. I would have taken a little bit more risk. I would have, instead of me only working with this type of client, I would have opened it up to this type of client, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
have pigeonholed myself. And most people are making those decisions from a fear-based place. And the thing is, in my business, in my $85 million private equity fund, there came a point where the business didn't need me actually anymore,
Mm.
because I had grown and scaled the business to such an extent where I hired a team of 80 people. I replaced myself because the person that I needed to be far more educated in certain things that I couldn't have even wanted to, even if I started that journey today, right? The person that replaced me had 20 years of experience in something
Yeah.
that the business really needed. And the thing is, a lot of people don't make the right decisions on behalf of the business because their ego gets in the way. They're afraid. What are they supposed to do if they're not doing that thing on the day-to-day
Yes.
basis, right? And I face some of my darkest shadows, right? As a person, like some of the ugliest parts of me came out in business because I realized how much fear was dictating my life, right? And how much
Mm-hmm.
fear was dictating my decision making. And the worst part is that my business suffered. And so I finally decided to get out of my own way. And by the way, I just want to say something too. During the time where fear was so foggy and was, making the choices for me, deep down under all of that fog, I knew deep inside that I was meant to go in another direction,
Wow.
and that this person was supposed to come in and replace me and be great and take the business somewhere else. But I didn't have the answers that I wanted in
Yeah.
order for me to make that jump. And so it took about 8 months for me to take this person in, give them the opportunity that they really deserved, right? I think
Yeah.
when we hire people, we're like, well, it needs to be perfect, and it's got to
Yeah.
be my way, and I don't understand what you're doing, and maybe that person wants to do things a little differently, and
Yeah.
you don't understand it, but maybe the business needs that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, long story short, I finally started to get very good at listening to myself and also paying attention, becoming very self-aware of how the business was suffering on my behalf, and also how if I just let go a little bit, what would happen, right? And
Yeah.
so interesting because as I let go a little bit and I let people make those decisions for me, my business really started taking off. And it was the most insulting but beautiful thing ever to realize that I wasn't needed in this equation anymore. And so, long story short, I've always had a very deep calling to help female entrepreneurs specifically. I've just been through a lot as a woman myself,
Yeah.
and I wanted to also help create a new way, a new wave essentially of conscious entrepreneurs. Because if we start thinking from this perspective, our businesses flourish. We also grow as women too, because we
Oh yeah.
allow room for the right relationship to come in, to be better mothers or
Yeah.
partners or daughters or whatever that looks like, right? And also to tap into our bodies and to allow for a schedule and a life that feels good for us. And so
Yes.
that's my inspiration for the intuitive CEO. I truly believe that you can accomplish all of the big things that you want to do where you're not controlling, chasing, forcing, and constantly living out of fear and anxiety.
Let me ask you this. How do you recognize that you're making decisions based out of fear? What are those things? What are just maybe two things you can kind of give people to say, hey, this is what it makes sense in terms of like, this is how you're making fear based decisions?
Yeah, so let's just say you're in the process of hiring someone and you have two candidates in front of you, two
Hmm.
resumes, and one of them has, I'm just making this up. One of
Yeah.
them has an amazing background and you immediately sense some kind of avoidance in you. It could be,
Hmm.
ooh, that person went to Berkeley and they're probably really expensive. I don't want to hire them. Or,
Oh yeah.
oof, that person um, has way more experience than me. What if they take this role and then they try to steal my idea and they go run to
Mm,
another company?
yeah.
Or and the thing is, like, these are little feelings. Like you look at a resume, you could feel that in your gut. You could
Yeah.
feel it. You could be like, oh, I too scary for me. Other candidate. And you pull the
Yeah.
other candidate up, and then that person maybe is less qualified than you.
Hmm.
And you're like, perfect. I can train them into exactly who I want them to be.
Yeah.
And so I think it's asking yourself when you're making that choice, am I feeding my ego in any way? Am I
Hmm.
am I making this choice an incredible parent to my business? Am I giving them the right support and resources to really take this thing and run with it? Or
Yeah.
am I creating a self-fulfilled prophecy essentially of me being unhappy and essentially, you know, upset or even fearful later down the line because I hired a person that one doesn't really fit my needs just to, just for the business's sake. Two, it
Yeah.
doesn't fit the role for the business. And three, it actually does a serious disservice to that person because they're never going to be good enough for you and they're probably not going to feel very good working for you.
Yeah.
And so I would say to just pause for a minute and before you make the decision, just think about you wearing those glasses. Am I making a decision out of low self worth and ego, or am I
Hmm.
making a decision because this is going to be the right thing for what we need right now, even if it means that I feel insecure?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was a big deal when you said you brought someone in to replace you because you felt like the business didn't need you anymore and someone came with more experience. I feel like entrepreneurs are so afraid to let go of their baby. Like, of course, we know you need to bring a team to scale and to really build a business, but that takes a lot. Like, that's big for someone to say, hey, you know what? It's time for me to step back and let somebody else come in and take over. And I think that's, I'm glad you said that because I think that's what a lot of entrepreneurs need to hear, that they can let someone else come in, take care of the baby, raise the baby to an adult, right? You really can do that.
Yeah, and I think, I a lot of this was a lot of this was self-taught, but a lot of this also was through having the right mentorship, the really experienced
Hmm.
entrepreneurs that
Yeah.
pushed me. And when I say like that process wasn't sexy, I mean it really wasn't. Like I
Yeah.
was ugly crying every week. I was so upset with things not going my way.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting because when your ego is really tested, you're like a little toddler. Like you just get so upset over the dumbest things. You're constantly on high defense.
Yeah.
And it's like a sense of you that comes out that's very immature. And I look back at that and I remember it, and I'm okay with being vulnerable and talking about it
Yeah.
because it's real. Because a lot of people don't like to talk about it because there's a lot of shame admitting
Yeah.
that you don't want someone better than you in your line of work, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's your baby, like it doesn't
Hmm.
make any sense.
Yeah, you're right. Let me ask you, for people who are new to spirituality that come to you, what practices or tools do you recommend for connecting with their intuition in a business context?
Ooh, okay. So I have a couple of resources. Fun
Hmm.
fact, and shameless plug, but it's really actually a way that I have used for many years. So I've been huge on well, first of all, you have to be okay with receiving help. That's the one
Yeah.
thing. Like you need to really you have to get very comfortable asking for guidance,
Hmm.
receiving help. Um, and knowing that you might not have the right answer. I think using your intuition as a muscle, and
Yeah.
the smaller little decisions that you make up front, testing it, the bigger decisions you can make down later on. I mean, I've made some huge bets using my intuition that
Yeah.
have made me millions of dollars, and it's because I trust my voice and I know exactly where in my body fear sits, where love sits, and like where my soul sits, where I can make decisions. That's something that you're never going to be perfect out of the gate doing this, because there's a lot of things in your head that are constantly talking to you, and you just need to figure out who's owning what at the
Yeah.
decision making table. You know what I mean? I will say, um, so first of all, if I am new to this journey, one of the things that has saved me throughout the years is using Oracle card decks. I love
Mm.
Oracle cards, and I love doing little practices. So one of the little practices I'll do is I'll write. I actually just did this recently. I'll write. Seriously, I did this with a client recently. She didn't know what audience to speak to for her new brand. She was feeling really
Hmm.
confused, and she's like, everyone's telling me to go this way. My competitors are doing this. I really want to talk to like this crowd, but I don't feel qualified, and I don't know like how to make this decision. I'm overwhelmed because her marketing wasn't clear.
Yeah.
So we wrote down all the possibilities on all these little papers, and we just like shuffled them around in her hand. And she just took like a nice deep breath and thought about her business, thought about the vision of her business, how big she wanted it to be, and
Hmm.
her public speaking and all the things that she wanted to do. And she really felt the energy of that. She really felt like connected to that future. And she picked one of the little papers. And guess what? One of the little papers that she ended up picking ended up being where her intuition was guiding her originally. So if you're confused, I know this is very unorthodox advice, right? But you know what? It's the little things that I think help people get by.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of like making it into this huge process. It doesn't need to be this huge process. Go really feel like understand what your gut is telling you, and ask for guidance. So asking for guidance can come in many different ways. You can do little things like that. I use Oracle card decks to help me make decisions. Fun fact, I'm actually launching a deck in December that's for women in finance, actually, to help them make
Nice.
better business decisions. For people who don't know what Oracle cards are, it's not divination, it's not anything witchy. It's literally just motivational cards. You shuffle them, and if you're looking for an answer, you pick one out, and it'll help you make it a more informed decision. That's really
Mm.
what they're used for.
That's
Um,
cool.
so that's one of them. And then the other way I'd say is to really understand where in your body you feel fear or love or excitement, like literally physically where in your body. For me, I always feel fear in my like right underneath my rib cage.
Yeah.
And if I'm making decisions that are based out of fear, I'll feel it there. So I also think it's just becoming very aware of where these emotions sit in your body when you are making these decisions.
Yeah. How do you balance the traditional business strategy, I guess, with that intuitive decision making, especially when the two seem to conflict?
They don't. And I like to always rephrase this for people or reframe it. It's they don't they actually never they're never in conflict.
Okay.
It's just you are being told what to do in some shape or form by society or the people around you or a business partner, right, or a close friend.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right to you, but because there's some shame or there's some imposter syndrome or there's some kind of doubt, you choose the other side.
Mm.
And by the way, that also works in the inverse. You can be, and that's why it's really important to understand where your intuition is coming from, because intuition is not an emotion. People are like, well, intuition's feelings. It's actually not feelings. So I'll give you a really good example here. Your intuition will tell you, I'm sure half of the people listening to this have dated someone horrible. So let's use that example.
Yeah,
Okay,
of
we've all
course.
dated someone horrible.
Yeah.
And what did you do when you dated that horrible person? Your intuition told you this isn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that was clear as day. And your emotion was upset that that person wasn't for you. But they are two different things, right?
Yeah.
Emotion, even like if it's words from God or whatever it is, intuition comes in, it is a very clear message. And then you choose to react, on your own, whether you're
Accordingly,
happy about
right?
it or not.
Yeah.
Correct. And so with business decision and business strategy, you have your intuition, which is always guiding you to make the right decisions. You usually have a fear response or a love-based response, like hiring the right person, but not wanting to, right? That's your intuition saying, hey, this would be the right choice. But your fear is telling you, no, I'm not ready for this, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And your intuition is always working with the business strategy. Strategy helps make you better, helps make you make more informed decisions. So they're always working together. They're never battling each other. And the people that have the best blend of both tend to skyrocket. So we can use Elon Musk for an example. Intuitively, he felt like electric cars were going to be the thing, or SpaceX was going to be the thing. There was very little business strategy in the beginning of that business because there was no data to show that any of that had been done before.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's a lot of data out there in business. And sometimes data can be the crutch of you too, because you can only be making decisions based from that point, and you're not actually tapping into, hey, am I making the right choice for this? Like, it happens a lot in motherhood too. You read all these books to be a mom, you read all these things on how to parent your child. And the child comes out and you're like, okay, well, I read all these things, but this is actually the right thing for our family.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. 100%. How has your spirituality practice shaped your leadership style, and what impact you think has it had on a team or your company culture when you was in your real estate business?
I've always been called like mom in all of our businesses. Always. I mean, I've also been in very male dominated industries, but
Yeah.
I've always been called mom because I've always learned how to keep people.
Yeah.
I've always learned how to me, and I'll say this time and time again, because there's so many people that look at employees as just like this thing that helps them get to where they're going.
Yeah.
But some of the best companies in the world, if you look at huge businesses that have really great culture, their employers always hire people and bake the potential candidate employer's vision into the company, right? And vice versa. And it's always based on mutual values. It's really important when hiring and leading a team. And it's also genuinely caring about how the vision of your business impacts the lives and even the lives of the families and the other things that you contribute when hiring other people.
Yeah.
I had just been to a breathwork facilitation training in June. And a friend of mine who's pretty successful, he runs a really large business. It's a breathwork business, it's a spiritual business. And it was a facilitation training, but there were a lot of practitioners there. So there was like a videographer, a social media person, the person facilitating the education and the training, speakers. And it was amazing to see the videographer who's in the back of the room at the conference filming this, and also being able to do breath work, and also being able
Mm-hmm.
to understand how him capturing some of these very vulnerable moments in this training are going to change the world, right? By his
Yeah.
way of filming, because he's been there, he's understood the product, and it's also changed his life. And so the
Wow.
more you bake that into your business, the more you have to think about it like this. The reason why Taylor Swift is like such an amazing, like such a big enterprise brand. By the way, I'm not a huge Taylor fan, just stating like the business law,
Yeah.
business, just it's business here that I look at it at,
Yeah.
is because everyone advocates for her, and everyone has felt an emotion that she conveyed in her music.
Yeah.
And it has healed their lives through her lyrics and her song, and her whole thing, her acoustics. And you're doing the same thing with your business. So when you hire someone amazing that is the same energy level of you and your business energetically just went up a notch,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
That's so true. Let me ask you, do you see spirituality? Because it's, before back in the day, spirituality used to be something that's really was kept between family and friends, right? People never really talked about it so publicly, and especially in business, never incorporated in business. As we begin to see more and more of that, people talking more about spirituality, bringing it more in business, making more decisions based off their feelings and learning more about it, where do you see that just increasing as this world begin to change? Like, where do you see that going in business? Do you see it becoming more, or do you see people maybe begin to back away from it?
I love to I don't typically make public bets, but we're here, so it's fine. Um I think it'll be like a multi-billion dollar business, and I think we're
Yeah.
not very far from it. I think we're about 18 months out where it becomes more mainstream.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting. There's a lot of spirituality is a big spectrum. You
Hmm.
have people who are doing tarot and ayahuasca ceremonies on one side,
Hmm.
and then you have also people on the breath work, more neurological science based forms of spirituality, ice baths, and more, I'd say more body work, right, where it's proven
Yeah.
in the body. And so it's so big. I think it has a stigma of being more on that side, more of the tarot. And by the way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with either any of those things. I have been exposed to all of those things, but I'm just saying, I think the more people come out and define it in their own authentic terms, like everything that we've talked about today, these are my own practices that I've been practicing for over a decade, right? And now
Yeah.
I'm reteaching those things. Um, where you have oracle cards and little messages, and people are going to listen to this and be like, I've never heard of that, that's weird, but hey, I'm curious, right? I have a decision
Hmm.
I'm trying to make, and I'm going to go try that out, right? And it doesn't need
Yeah.
to be weird, and it doesn't need to be this like big thing that needs to be ceremonial or anything,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing with other religions. Like, I grew up in many different forms of religion, but with other religions, that's how we are, right? We take the little practices that we learn in church or in our family traditions, and we
Hmm.
incorporate it through daily prayer or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think it's just, I think it'll go mainstream, but I think it's all about how to not be so on one end of the spectrum or the other, and how to take all of it and find a way to incorporate it where it helps you feel better about yourself and also makes you a more connected entrepreneur.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's important to have in your daily life, in your daily routine, whatever your spirituality is. I think is an important part of our lives and the way we express ourselves. So I love it. I completely love it. For those wanting to take big steps, think big, right? Take bold steps in their career. What advice would you give them to help them push past those self-limiting beliefs?
I'll give a very unsexy answer. And it's just the truth. And I think there are people that are going to be listening to this and they are ready for it. And then there are
Yeah.
people who deep down know that they're not there yet. And by the way, either is completely okay. And there have been many situations in my life that I was not ready to, to be a student in front of a teacher, right? Essentially, that's
Yeah.
what it is. But I think overcoming, like, success is a byproduct of your internal operating system. And that is just pure fact. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
At least 95% of the time. There's a lot of freak accidents where, people win the lottery or whatever, but we're not talking about that because that doesn't mean fulfillment or happiness. That's
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
That's a different kind of success. We're
Yeah.
talking about aligned success that where you have a state of peace and your nervous system does not dictate your entire life, right? With how
Mm-hmm.
anxious you are. We're talking about truly trusting and knowing that the decisions that you're making are guiding you towards a thriving business, a happy family, a partner that you love and respect, the relationship that you have with yourself, a body that you can appreciate. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Just
Yeah.
want to say, yeah.
Exactly.
So, I think for anyone that's going after those things, each one of those things is work, right? If I were to go lose
Yeah.
20 pounds right now, that's actually like a full-time job. For
Oh
those of
yeah.
you who've worked your butts off trying to be at the gym, that's a whole full-time job. For you to go get ready for a partner, most people, well, everyone has different stories on how they met their person, but
Mm-hmm.
nowadays with everything happening in the dating world and all these gender roles kind of reshaping themselves,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who are looking to consciously date, and that also takes work, right, within
Mm-hmm.
yourself. And so if you want to do any of these big things, including going after big goals, doing something successful, you got to look inside, right? the
Yeah.
the tools and tacticalities and all the things, the content, the podcast, all this stuff, those things I spent years trying to be good on podcasts. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know how to use my voice, right?
Yeah.
And I will say that it's so funny because here I have a $20 microphone. I'm using AirPods. I don't need, like, I'm not even, we're just having a conversation, right? And if you asked
Yeah.
me to do this 3 years ago, I would have choked. And it has nothing to do with the gear,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I have had this gear for years. And so, I will say it's look within yourself, look at how you're making decisions. That is just popping open the hood, right? You're just
Yeah.
opening the hood there. And I will say my last piece of advice is be very curious, almost like a bystander to your trauma and your limiting beliefs. Get curious about it. Be like, that's so fascinating. Why
Mhm.
do I think that way?
Yeah.
Because it's only when we become curious to our internal operating system where we can start to think outside of that and question it.
Yeah. That's true. I feel like our beliefs really dictate every decision we make in our lives. And so being able to know where they come from and do the self work, I'm big on self work too, is so important to understand who you are and where you want to go in this life. Sabrina, it's been a good conversation. I thank you so much for coming on. Let me ask you one last question. What can we expect next from you? What is it that you're excited about that you have coming next?
Ooh, girl, I have so much coming next. And I will say something really quickly. Nothing that I'm about to mention was anything that I actively pursued. It actually all found
Mm,
me. So
that's
I
when
didn't
it's
have to
really good.
I didn't have to chase it. I didn't have to force it. I didn't have to compete for it. I didn't have to
Wow.
prove it. It is coming through me, and I'm really excited about it. So I have a couple of things. One, I did mention my Finance Feminine Oracle card deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's for the high achieving woman who wants to connect with her higher self. So that comes out in December. And
Nice.
they make great holiday gifts, but it's coming out. My pricing is at $24.99, so they'll be on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the next thing I have is I'm supporting a massive nonprofit, which I'm really excited about, for 2,500 girls in high school from the ages of 15 to 18 to actually discuss all the things that we're talking about to help younger girls make better informed decisions on their careers and how to become early entrepreneurs, because I never had that
Yeah, me
at my
either.
age. So I am working on some nonprofit activities. We're launching a program in December as well. And then I will always have my flagship program available, which is called the Intuitive CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an entrepreneur that is starting a business or building or scaling a business, and you're looking for ways to connect more with yourself, grow your business in the way that you want to, but not be in that proving, chasing, forcing energy,
Yeah.
and still go after those big goals, and you're looking for a roadmap on how to get there, I do run that program a few times a year. I'm not sure if this episode will be out before me launching my program, but my next program goes live on 11/11.
Okay. Yeah. It should be around that time.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's it. Those are the things I'm working on.
All right. Thank you. Listen, I'm excited about them. Thank you so much again for coming on. This has been a great conversation. And we'll definitely need to have you back so we can talk more about business and spirituality and being more intuitive as business people. So that'll be exciting to do. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
All right, guys. I am Shaunie Sanders. This is the Girl Take No Podcast, and I will talk to you next time.